So it's not just the raid on foreign students which is going to damage universities under the Conservatives. That's already damaging universities, and I'm sure will continue to do so. But now Rishi Sunak is proposing, late last night, to crack down on insubstantial university courses, Mickey Mouse courses, that are apparently ripping young people off by offering degree places that do not increase their long-term earnings potential. Well, what exactly are these courses? Are these courses sort of traditional courses like, for example, Anglo-saxon or theology, or are they courses in knitting? And it's very difficult to tell the difference, because if you're going to judge every university course by its utility, it means all we're going to end up doing is teaching a range of the sciences and maybe law, which is simply teaching people how to remember things. So the idea that this will save the taxpayer $910 million by the end of the decade, that may well be true, but it would deprive universities of the opportunity to teach and encourage students, graduates, undergraduates to develop their mind. The university degree is a doorway into a single chamber. That chamber is ideally the place where students learn how to process information. And so it doesn't really matter what door you enter, as long as the chamber demands rigor. Because in the end, most university courses are not utilitarian. A course in history, for example, you don't need it. It's not going to earn you a job, but it will give you the techniques to be able to process information in a tidy and ordered way. The same thing I would suggest with theology, my subject. The same thing with studying an ancient language like Greek and Latin. Are we going to say that Greek and Latin, classics, one of the most respected university courses in the older universities, is a Mickey Mouse degree because it has no utility? And if we're looking to cut 1 in 3 university places, what Rishi Sunak is saying is that those university courses which cannot, which on against which university students borrow money, and then they don't get the sort of jobs where they can pay the money back. He says £1 out of every £4 borrowed by students was never paid back. That demonstrates not that universities are teaching the wrong subjects, but that the method of funding the universities is wrong. And the domestic tuition policy is, which has been frozen since 2012, is wrong when placed against the price that we're exacting from foreign students. And so even if there are organizations like the Office for Students, which is targeting low-quality courses, there are low-quality courses, but how do you measure that? And who measures that? And it's very difficult to see how we can, with justice, remove one course and keep another. The criterion is not specified by the government, other than whether this course produces students who can eventually get jobs. And I think this is very, very dangerous territory. It's going to emasculate our tradition of learning. Our tradition of learning was not built up by industrialists and business people. It was built up by the monasteries. And although it received this injection from business in the 19th century, It was the monasteries which started it, and the monasteries were not teaching utilitarian subjects. They were teaching subjects which were based on developing the mind, theology, philosophy. And those subjects, do they produce money? I'm not sure they do necessarily. Do they produce books? Yes. Do they produce thought? Yes. Are they something on which you can build? Yes. If you're going to study law, you really need to study some element of philosophy. And it helps in philosophy if you study some element of theology. Certainly, one element of any philosophy course would be the philosophy of religion, which is completely useless, and most of it doesn't even work. And yet learning about the ontological argument, for example, is generally the first experience that a student has of abstract thought. So from that point of view, it's very useful. It's like introducing students who haven't done further maths to the abstract thought of mathematics, to chaos theory and issues like that. Very important concepts, but they don't produce money. They're not utilitarian. And so I worry about these midnight, well, it wasn't really midnight, it was about 10 o'clock when the announcement last night was made. And I'm afraid I had a bit of a fitful night as a result, worrying about all this stuff. And I'm not sure where it takes us. Certainly if I were a university administrator, I would feel very anxious at the moment, particularly if I were in a red brick university or one of the newer universities around the UK. I might also feel anxious if I were an administrator in my own subject. And that said, I have also attended lectures that were utterly useless. And I have looked at papers and offered guidance. I looked up students' papers and offered guidance to them about their subjects. But oddly, most of those subjects that I consider extraordinarily vapid are called business studies. Those subjects, I fear, would survive.